Happening tomorrow, the Joint Task Force Red Hill will hold an open house to discuss their updated defueling plan. And this morning, I'm joined by Commander Nico Melendez, the spokesperson for the Joint Task Force Red Hill. Good morning, Commander. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start off. There's not just one event tomorrow. You have another event on Wednesday. Talk to me about these events. What are you guys trying to accomplish here?
So we're having two back-to-back open houses from 4 to 7 at the Kehi Lagoon Memorial Park. Our goal is to kind of explain the defueling process to the public. You know, we have all these repairs that we're going through. We have 253 repairs that DOH has mandated that we complete. But it doesn't stop there. We have to go through the summer with a lot of other major milestones. We want to take the opportunity to explain those milestones to the public so they have an understanding of what we're working toward with the Department of Health and the EPA to get to the relocation of fuel. So it's a long process, it's a deliberate process, but we want to make sure we get it right and we're safe, but we're fast.
And to help with the defueling process, or to get people to understand it, because it's a pretty complicated process, you guys have made a few videos.
Yeah, we did. We took some time because, between tank tightness testing or the flowable tank bottoms or a lot of things that people have never heard about before, we wanted to make sure that we were able to explain it. So we made some short videos, and we think that that's going to really get to what we need to do for the public to help them understand, because frankly, I learned a lot by watching the videos.
And Commander actually brought one of those videos in for us to get a little preview of it. Take a look.
One of the final steps in the defueling process involves removing fuel from an area called the flowable tank bottom. In Red Hill's case, removing fuel from the flowable tank bottom refers to the process of extracting fuel from the last 10 feet of each tank, tanks that stand 250 feet tall. Above the 10-foot level, main fuel lines can utilize gravity to remove most of the fuel. Below this level, however, a smaller drain line at the bottom of each tank is utilized. Red Hill has 14 active fuel tanks, with each flowable tank bottom holding roughly 120,000 gallons of fuel. Each flowable tank bottom is expected to take 14 hours to defuel.
Very informative in a simple way. I think I learned a little bit from that as well. But I know a lot of people are going to come into this meeting wanting to learn more about the defueling process, which you're going to get. But can you tell us a little bit about how and why the defueling timeline has changed a bit? I know that just came out within the last week.
Yeah, just last week we announced that we were going to be able to start the relocation of fuel in the middle of October. It was an iterative process working with the Department of Health and the EPA to identify efficiencies that we could find in the system. We have to identify the work that needs to be done, but then it needs to go through a QA process, a quality validation process. We have to do spill and response drills. We have to do some of these major milestones over the summer. So we wanted to make sure that before we made any promises that we couldn't keep, that gravity defueling would commence in October. And working with our regulators, we were able to identify those efficiencies and then cut the timeline and start it earlier.
And of course, we didn't just have a fuel leak. There's also been the toxic foam spill. That was a result of human error. What's being done to modernize the facility and maybe modernize facilities across the country so things like this, of course, don't happen again?
Well, I can't really speak to what's being done at facilities across the country. What I can tell you about Joint Task Force Red Hill and the work we're doing here is the Department of Health identified the repairs that need to be done to relocate fuel to close the facility as directed by the Department of Defense. So we're making those repairs. We're getting it up to the level that we need it to be to move the fuel so the environment can be safe, the people can be safe, and we can close the facility down.
Whereas want to do that safely, want to speed that up a little bit. So January, we can get so much out by gravity. What's going to happen to the part that can't be pulled out by gravity?
So I want to make sure we're clear that we're going to start in October if the conditions are right.
Okay.
If something doesn't work, we may have to push that. But we're saying it's going to be a conditions-based start to the gravity defueling of the facility.
Okay.
After January, when we expect to have all the fuel out, there will be I think we're going to have 99.85% of the fuel out of the facility. So we'll have a small amount of fuel left in the facility that we will work with the Department of Defense to identify a means of how that will be removed after we're done with the bulk majority of the fuel in January.
So we're still looking after January, a certain timetable that will have to be reassessed to remove that remaining not even 2%.
Right. We'll expect it to be part of the closure process, and the Department of Defense will come out with another supplemental plan to identify how that will be done. But the important point here is so much of the fuel, 99.85% of the fuel will be gone. We'll be able to protect the aquifer better. We're doing what the people of Hawaii have asked us to do to get the fuel out of there and ultimately close it down.
And I know in his State of the State address, Governor Green said the current oversight of Red Hill is not strong enough. Can you talk about the oversight that exists right now?
So one of the confusing parts for the people of Hawaii, one of the confusing parts about this has been, what is the Navy responsible for? What is the Defense Health Agency responsible for? What is the Joint Task Force responsible for? I can speak to the Joint Task Force, and we are working with the regulators. We are working with the government. We have conversations with the state leadership to keep them apprised of where we're going and what we're doing. And it's a constant dialogue. Just last week, we had our Defueling Information Sharing Forum with some of the state legislators to keep them apprised of where we're going. And we're working together to make this happen. And the work that we're doing with the regulators, the EPA and the DOH is important to get this process moved forward.
So, and we're talking about these, I guess, 3 different entities, if you want to talk about it in terms of the Navy. I think you said the Defense Health Agency and then the Joint Task Force. The other 2 agencies, what are they doing right now?
So the Defense Health Agency, they're working to address the health issues that came with this. I can't speak for them or what they're doing. And then the Navy is responsible for remediation and closure of the facilities, so they have their own responsibilities. The Joint Task Force was created specifically to defuel, and that's what we're concentrated on. Okay,
so tomorrow and Wednesday are those town hall meetings for people to get this information. You said 4
to 7 p.m. at Kehi Laguna Memorial Park. We'll be out there. We'll have our videos. Our leadership will be there to take questions, to really explain this process so people have an understanding of what defueling is.
Perfect. And for people who may be running a little late, does that mean they're going to miss some of those videos, or is there an opportunity for them to catch them all?
They'll be airing on loop all night long, and we look forward to having the public there so we can explain and really have a dialogue, because it's our job to listen to the people and explain what's happening and really take their concerns to heart.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Commander. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.